Can you guys hear me? Okay. I finally learned how to put this close enough to my mouth so that you can hear me. I'm Barbara Dempsey, and this is the last presentation of our season this year. And tonight we have Jack Rinehart and his wife Susan Higley Rinehart. Jack is a retired teacher and coach and member of the Edwardsburg Public Schools Foundation Hall of Fame. So we get treated tonight. And he also does a lot of mission work for Hope United Methodist Church, he and his wife Susan. Jack grew up in Mishawaka, or was born in Mishawaka, but grew up in Edwardsburg, and graduated from Edwardsburg in 1964, where he was a member of Eddie's first wrestling team. Incidentally, I just found out tonight he was coached by Gene Montgomery on that first team. Susan was a native of Edwardsburg. Her dad was Don Higley, who built all the houses in my neighborhood. And she graduated in 1971. And she and Jack met at Southwestern after Jack left the Navy. So Jack went to Western Michigan University, and he coached first at Hanover Horton High School, and then Union City, but then he returned to Edwardsburg in 1985. Where he coached wrestling, taught lifelong skills to students, taught varsity wrestling, football, track, and middle school sports. He coached the Eddies to 2 wrestling state runner-up titles. The first year as an assistant, the second year as a head coach, and the second year he was named Regional Wrestling Coach of the Year. He and his wife Susan are very active and work for the Hope United Methodist Church. They're active with the Hope with Feet Home Repairs program, and he has been actively involved in mission work for Hope, serving in both the United States and the Caribbean. And they have 6 children that they've reared. So they have a lot of stories to tell you tonight about their growing up years in Edwardsburg and anything else they want to talk about. So we're just going to turn it over to them. Give them a warm welcome.
Well, the good news is I can get rid of 1 page of notes. Well, thank you for having us here. I feel it's an honor. I appreciate it. And I recognize a lot of faces. Yeah. And some of you will be mentioned. So hope I don't insult you. I don't plan on doing that. Yeah, I'll repeat a few things because I've got my list, and so I'll go down through my list and hopefully entertain you. And I will allow my wife to speak. She will have her opportunity.
Thank you.
There's nothing striking this.
She'll be jerking this off my head. When I was asked, and I will mention this, I was asked by Ed Gardner, and I will get even with him, so don't worry about that. He said, talk about my growing up in Edwardsburg. And when I sat down and started thinking about the things, what I did when I lived in town and grew up in Edwardsburg, it brought back a lot of really neat, what I think, memories. And so I'm going to just start out by saying that I live in Pat Beller's house. And that's where I grew up, down on 1st and Main Street. And my dad bought that from his dad, I believe it was in 1945, around that time. And so we lived there until I was about 14. We were headed to Niles. I was in my mom's tummy at that time. We were headed to Niles, couldn't get there because of the snow, and so we ended up in Mishawaka. That's how I was, the hospital in Mishawaka is where I was born. So that's how that happened. Hopefully none of you did the math. I was born in 1946. Sue was born a few years after that. But fortunately, we finally met. Going to school, I was fortunate enough that my first year in school was in the building over by Proctor's Garage, was the town hall.
It was a spillage or was it?
Yeah.
It was the town hall.
The town hall, that was first grade for me. And I watched the primary getting built, which is where we went to the second year of school for me. So that was a brand new building. I also got to be one of the first in the new high school we had at that time, leaving Chicago Road, where I went to school for, I believe, a year in the middle school. And that was crowded because it was middle school and high school at that time. So that was, I always liked Chicago Road. It was just a great building. Halloween activities, which are coming up. I remember Halloween, we had, I believe it was the Legion, which is Robin's Nest now. Robin's Nest, but I remember having parties in there, and one of my favorite activities was bobbing for apples. I remember that. I remember going to Chicago Road School where they had a costume party, costume contest. And I also remember at Chicago Road watching a varsity basketball game in the bleachers, which was nowadays, that's a half-court shot at the most if you remember the size of the gym. Memorial Day parades, decorating bikes and riding in Memorial Day parade. That was always exciting. That's been around for a long time, because by the time we got to high school, we could ride the fire truck and the football team. And that's no longer happening, for good reasons, I'm sure. The danger of falling off and hurting a football player. Outdoor movies down in, it would probably be somewhere in the area of the secondary school and administrative office. We went down there. See? But that was another activity we had. I don't remember it lasting many years, but I do remember going to a couple outdoor movies down there with my brothers and sisters mostly. Played a lot in our own backyard, in the backyard. That was a big yard back in those days, and the friends I had at that time were Don and Dale Westfall, Linda and Lynn Howe, Brian and Kevin Clare, and probably my best friend until he moved was Ned Armstrong. He moved out east, his dad got a job out there, and they moved down east. And I saw a picture of the Edwardsburg Argus on the wall. My mom worked at the Argus for a couple of years, and it was a neat thing because we went upstairs, I'm not sure we were supposed to, and there was some absolutely old newspapers up there. And if I would do it today, I would gather up some of those newspapers, but I did not, because they were early 1900s with some of the newspapers that were piled up in that area, almost as old as Ed Gardner.
I got you.
That's just the beginning. I also got to watch new high school being built. We were one of the first freshmen. We were the first freshman class in there. We were there a half a year. We were a half a year at Chicago Road, and then then the rest of the year we finished up at the high school. Some of our classes were in the bus garage. I think we had band in the bus garage, and I think our industrial arts classes were in the bus garage. I like the term that you use, life skills. Through the years I taught, it went from shop all the way to industrial arts, all the way up to industrial technology. And now it's life skills. And the program really didn't change much. But every time they thought something would make it better, they just changed the name. I taught for 35 years. 10 years at 2 other schools, Hanover Horton for 3 years, and then they shut their program down, and then Union City for 7 years, which is where I started getting back into wrestling. I was an assistant coach at Union City. Went to college at Southwestern for 2 years, where I met Sue. In 1973, we got married. And we moved off to Western, where I eventually graduated from Western with my bachelor's degree in education. At that time period too, we having children. And we ended up with 6 children. Happy to say all 6 graduated from Edwardsburg High School. And see, 4 of them are still in education. They all got their teaching degree. I have 2 teaching at Niles. One is a, help me out, culinary arts teacher, and the other is a counselor. Carrie's a counselor, and Rebecca's a culinary arts. Josh is teaching at Edwardsburg. He's in the middle school, and he also helps coach football and wrestling. So those things are still going on. And my daughter, Kristen, is a teacher in South Carolina. She teaches students with autism. And if you hear the stories about autism, that is definitely a challenge. So hats off to her. That's my 4 of the kids. John, my oldest son, is in Waco, Texas. And Matt, if you like ice cream or pizza, you might know Matt. We own the Papa's Pizzeria in town and the ice cream shop right next door. So we're open 7 to 9. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm checking my notes and I see, and I'd like to mention this because Leo Hoffman was my football coach for 4 years. And he was also my driver's training teacher, which I am sure touches a lot of people in this room as far as driver's training, that he taught that forever. And I always respected Mr. Hoffman. So, my wife said, don't tell a story, but I'm going to. I just happened to get a call from a good friend of mine, Kenny Gard. And him and I were in the same class and graduated in 1964. And we stayed pretty good friends after school. And Vietnam War is going on. And we're looking at each other going, do you want to get drafted? No, I don't want to get drafted. Do you want to get drafted? No. So we enlisted in the Navy. And we enlisted in the Navy on the buddy plan. Whatever you think about the buddy plan, it is not true. We rode to Chicago, to the federal building in Chicago. They lined us up in alphabetical order. And his last name was Gard, so he was at the beginning of the line. Rinehart, towards the end, last time I saw him. and we did drive home together. We graduated Chicago, the Great Lakes in Chicago, north of Chicago, and we did drive home together, but that was the buddy plan. Just a good friend, and unfortunately he just recently lost his wife. His wife passed away. And it was good talking to him today, and I just wanted to mention Kenny. So, Mrs. Gunn also was a part of my life when I was growing up. We used to walk through her driveway, which we didn't realize was her driveway. My brother and I mostly would haul our stuff down the dirt pathway, down the road, in through her driveway and over to Pleasant Lake. And bless her heart, she never yelled or screamed at us or anything. She just let us do it. Us being very naive about the whole thing, but that was a few years ago too. After Sue and I got married, first teaching assignment was Haddle-Horton. We got involved with United Methodist Church up there, and our first work camp, our first big work camp, was to Johns Island, South Carolina. And we took a group of probably 35 people. 35 people, and we went to on island. You could drive onto the island, and we helped move a home. The Chisholm family, that's the home that was, they had 3 outbuildings. And one had been moved the year before, attached it to their kitchen. And the second year down there, moved another building over to the main housing. So both their bedrooms were finally attached to their kitchen area and bathroom area.
They had a lot of children, and so they would sleep on the floor, you know, like,
Cords and board.
so that they could all be like in one house. And they add that to
They, I think one of the neatest things was that they lived on an area where when the tide was out, it was mucky. When the tide came in, they did most of their food gathering or trapping at that time. And they fixed a meal for us that was a banquet. We had
All
things,
from the ocean.
all from the ocean, yeah. And we're standing there waiting for them to eat, and they're standing there going, no way. And so we had to eat before they did, and that was a neat experience. Yeah, it was, but that was probably the beginning of our,
John's Island is by Charleston, so if you don't know.
it's about time for you to take over, huh? I did go to the Methodist church uptown. It was probably a one day, Sunday a year, but I remember walking up there on Easter and going up to church on Easter. So we've been a Methodist for, well, I've been a Methodist. Some of us are Baptists. But, you know.
Talk about, okay. So after John's Island?
Yeah, we really started getting into mission work. It was something that we both had a compassion for. And our second trip after that, we went to a Potawatomi Indian reservation in Escanaba, Michigan. And again, your train of thought is that you're going to work. Well, that's not the way they felt up there. We went up there to work, and they wanted more of a interaction between, cultural exchange between them and us. We played a lot of softball, and that's what we wanted. We did scrape their community building. I don't believe we did any construction, but we scraped their community building, and we were getting ready to paint it. They go, no, we'll finish the project. So, okay. But we ended up tenting at that particular time. We were camping with tents in a low area, and it rained.
Porta-John.
Yeah, Porta-John. And it rained, and needless to say, most of our tents got flooded. So it was pretty bad, plus it was a pasture for cows that had been there years before that. So, yeah, that's correct. Yeah. A little.
That is why, even at John's Island, we slept on the floor to school, you know, and then we fixed all your own food. Except I slept on a table because they had roaches.
And everybody knows cockroaches do not climb up table legs. So she was safe. We didn't even have a shower down there. That was, we had a hose going out the back. If you were there first, you got the warm water from the hose laying in the sun. But after that, you're going to get a cold shower. That was I think that was what really inspired us to continue on in our mission work. After that, I went to Jamaica, and I went up into the mountains of Jamaica, and that was a 15-day trip, not including travel. And one of the things that we helped to do, we helped pick corn and that was their first corn crop, and they were taking the corn crop. They literally had a small car. They opened up the back doors, took the seat out, and packed, not just throw it in there, but literally each ear of corn had its own little place, and filled the car up with corn to take down to the market. And that's how they were raising money to help pay for the project. What we ended up doing in Jamaica, they had a metal building, and during the summer it was used for school, and the heat was unbearable. So we put a ceiling in the building, so the heat wouldn't radiate straight down to the floor. It would help, it would go out other places, so we did that. You could shower, no, you couldn't shower. You could walk down to the creek and clean up, but to walk back up the hill would put you into another sweat. So it was a very little value taking a shower. We probably were down to Redbird Mission in Kentucky, Beverly, Kentucky, which is in the Appalachian area, probably 15 times down there for different mission trips. Partial with Pokagon United Methodist Church, and then a lot with Hope United Methodist Church. That's an area that used to be big into coal mining, and coal mining doesn't go big anymore. And a lot of people there just have absolutely no money at all. We'd stay at Redbird Mission. They had a school. When we first got down there, they had a fairly extensive clinic, but even that's drilled down to not much of anything. Would always take clothes down with our trips on Redbird. One year we came back and fall comes around and Sue's looking for her coat. What did I do with my coat? It must have been donated to Redbird.
Grab the wrong box.
Yeah. So, yeah. Went to Haiti twice. I went to Haiti twice, and that's simply because she stayed home with the kids, and I got the privilege of going off to Haiti. First time I went to Haiti was in 2010, a few months after the earthquake. What a mess. And you had a hard time even getting around the roads because they were not picking up the debris. Our job was going to be to build water filtration systems, because drinking water down in Haiti was a thing that just wasn't there. So we worked on building, we're going to work on building water filtration systems, but the plant that we were going to work at hadn't been repaired yet. So we ended up doing classes on chemically treating water in order so people could get clean drinking water. One class that we had probably 25 people show up. And we look outside and there's only one small pickup truck. So we're going, how did you all get your truck? That was it. They literally stood up, packed themselves in there, and 25 people came to our water filtration or water purification talk in one small pickup truck, which was not uncommon. We saw people in Haiti riding motorcycles, and there would be 4 or 5 people on a motorcycle. If they had an accident, it would be terrible. Several projects locally. We built ramps. We're in the process of trying to build a ramp right now, but me and my partner are getting older. And so what we thought we could do is turning out to be, why did we do this? But we're working on a ramp. Within a couple weeks, we'll have that done. And hopefully some other lighter projects that we're going to work on. So, come on, Mom, help me out. Is that everything?
I think it's interesting, because I was raised in the country,
Oh, yeah.
so my experience growing up is different than his. He talks about a lot of buildings that are gone.
Sue, could you use your microphone, please?
Well, I was just gonna refer to him anyway.
Oh.
Some, like I remember the Sinclair Station with a dinosaur.
Oh, yes. And the little restaurant next to the
Yeah,
Sinclair station.
which is that, was an antique store.
The
It's open anymore.
hamburger stand,
Oh, yeah.
that's right outside, yeah. I've been there, they don't sell hamburgers anymore.
No?
The Uptown Tavern, yeah. Maybe not a place you want to remember, but
Manco's Hardware.
Manco's Hardware.
Every church-
Christmas time at Manco's Hardware was unbelievable, like a fairyland, so that was a neat thing.
Now, where was that?
That's at the open corner
Okay.
across the street. It burnt down
2006.
2006, yeah, it burnt down 2006.
At Christmas, their second store, their second level, was just filled with toys. It was wonderful. And see everything.
You spend time at Mark's Taylor's restaurant right down the street.
Right next door.
Oh, is that going to be?
Oh,
Yeah, that was right next door to the station, because my first job there was washing dishes at 11. I'm at 11 years old, not 11 in a car. They were so,
Pat Belair is one of my sister's best friends too. And so
don't see enough of each other, do we?
no, we don't, no. And Pat was involved in school when
Yeah.
I was teaching too, so. And illegal parking, illegal parking. I know that. I try to get out of my shop when I had autos, and somebody who was doing something for the concession stand would illegally park behind my garage door.
No, I was.
It wasn't concession stand. You got overtime that night.
Yeah, I did. I walked home. Sue grew up out in the country, and I would really like for her to speak on that herself, but it was different. She had 3 sisters and 2 brothers,
Yeah.
and grew out.
So our play was just with ourselves, and on that, there was no houses out there, it was just our farm.
Well,
She
Where-
wasn't there yet.
yeah. No, there was a farm.
It was a 50-acre farm that my dad had, and then when he subdivided it and started building the houses, and then they started building across the street. My parents used to, they had bloodhounds, and so they would hunt across, in the woods area.
Where was it?
On Redfield, the house is still there. It's a 2-story white house.
Chelsea Wilson.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of the person. Oh, yes, it's where Chelsea Wilson and her family lived.
Yes.
And there was, the garage was there, and there was a barn, because my dad had cows, and then a granary attached to that. So we would play wonderful games there, and in the woods, climb trees, and all the things that kids do. My dad would bring in his soybeans. I remember he would have a trailer sitting on the lane, and his kids would be in the trailer throwing the beans, and then he'd come back and yell at us, please get out, because we, put them all on the ground, we didn't want that, so. He worked like a lot of small farmers. You farm, but you also had another job, so he worked as a carpenter, and then decided to subdivide and start his own business, and that's how all that started. And then my mother didn't want him to build wooded lots, because that was our woods, so he moved us back into the house. At the back of the field, there was a house off to the side that Bob Harmon was selling, so we moved there, and then he could build her home and all the other houses, in the woods part of that, so.
Which is where we live now. We bought
Yeah.
her
My
mom and dad's
sister and
home.
her husband fixed the house, and then we bought it from them.
The subdivision that your father built, was that on Redfield?
Yes,
Okay.
it's Redfield Estates, but it used to be called the right-hand side of the road, and then the woods where they used to hunt is on the left side, and then other, I think that lots of different contractors built homes back in the woods area. My dad built, I think, just one back there. Most of the rest was
On the south side?
yeah, of the road, yeah.
Okay.
There's my contribution.
And her mom was a teacher
Oh,
at
yeah.
Edwardsburg too. She taught.
She started out at Eagle Lake. My dad owned a farm on Bullhand Road. He bought from his father, so that was like the original farm. And my mom tells a story of being sitting out under an apple tree in her front yard when some administrators came and asked her to come and teach because they needed a teacher. So she started out at Eagle Lake. And actually that was before teachers had to have the license. She'd gone to a teaching school in Illinois, but her senior year she didn't finish. She had hurt her arm, so she came down to stay with her cousin, Jerry Kirkdorfer, and that's where she met my dad, and they got married, and that was the end of the school part. So, but then she started teaching, and then she spent her whole career at Edwardsburg. She moved to the primary now, and that's where she taught for a lot of years. Kindergarten. A lot of years kindergarten.
I think the first time I met her mom, it was close to Halloween, or at least when she was at school, and she was dressed up. She was dressed up in a costume.
Green skin. She
Yeah. She really got into it.
You told me one time about you were a ranger or
Oh.
something,
Oh.
and
I was a national park ranger for 2 summers out on an island off the coast of North Carolina. And the only way on and off the island is by ferry boat. It's definitely an island. And it was a great job. Well, what was happening is that the school year was encroaching on both ends. And they wanted me there from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And they didn't pay a lot. And we came, our second summer there, we thought we had it nailed. And we took down a ton of food with us. And we had to pay rent. We were living in a trailer, had to pay the Park Service rent for the
Great
trailer.
big water bugs lived in that.
And big spiders.
It's a grubby.
But, I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyhow.
He was an interpreter, so
Yeah.
he took people on nature walks and
Yes, nature walks. One of my favorite activities was I got to dress up as a pirate. And at night, I wouldn't go out first. A regular ranger in uniform would go out, and he or she would build a fire, and she would set facing the sand dunes. So the people that were there would have their back to the sand dunes. And so I'd sneak out over top of the sand dunes, and I'd get as close as I could without being seen, and I'd go, "Ahoy there!" I felt bad sometimes because there'd be little kids that would just absolutely go into fear. But, that was a good activity. I really enjoyed
they
that.
sit and talk about the different pirates. That's where Blackbeard
Yeah.
was killed there.
Couldn't break out of character. So, yeah, that was fun. That was 2 years, and that was back in, what dates were those?
It's been
80,
80, so it would have been 79, 80.
79, 80. And we've been going back to Ocracoke almost every year since, and it's a place we really love. So we have a
Very
good
different
friend.
now.
Yeah, very different. It's not really commercialized, but back then you could rent a house for $100 a week, and now you forget it. You're not gonna. Yeah, which is unfortunate. It's still quiet. Cars, you know when a ferry boat gets unloaded because you see traffic. But as soon as we find where they're going, you know, it's pretty safe to wander up and down the streets and not worry about traffic.
How did they fare, because I remember the hurricanes a 3 years ago. Have they pretty much recovered from that?
Properties that chose to recover have recovered. there are some properties that just never, I don't know if they'll ever come back. Well, they tore down Captain Ben's.
Yeah, some just got.
One of the restaurants named Captain Ben's was completely torn down. It was low, I mean, real low.
Right.
And there was another one that was on they call it Silver Lake, but it's really not a lake, it was just an inlet where the ferry boats would come into. And that was another restaurant that hasn't come back. There are several houses that we have stayed in at different times, and there was one of the pictures during a news that we saw where some of the houses were built on stilts. The level of water on the island was like 6 foot higher than any spot on the island. Every house on the island had water on it. And since we've been going back since that hurricane, I would say every year we've seen dozens of houses being put up on stilts, so.
A lot of the homes weren't then, I mean, they've been homes for generations, and a lot of those houses
We're flooded,
have gotten up, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great vacation spot. Great vacation spot.
You guys had a camp, didn't you manage
Oh,
a camp?
yeah.
You forget that, right?
I should,
It
yeah.
was on his notes.
Yes, it was, which are curled up right now. 23 years, Sue and I ran Crystal Springs Methodist Camp. And that was another great time for us in our life. We got to raise our kids there. It was one of those things where I was either going to have to get a third or fourth job because of having 6 children and only me teaching. Not that she wouldn't, but she was taking care of the kids, which was a full-time job as it was. But fortunately, it was on my trip to Haiti. No, Jamaica. I was going to Jamaica, and I had applied for the job to run the camp. Sue and I were counselors at the camp the year before, and I mentioned to the pastor of the church we were going to at that time, I said, man, I'd really like to be a camp manager. Well, the year went by, and he calls me and he goes, hey, Crystal Springs is opening up. And I said, well, I apply. Well, I applied, and they called me and said, we have interviews such and such week. I am not going to be here, I'm going to Jamaica. So that was my choice. I was going to Jamaica, and the camp job would be gone. Well, when I got home on a Saturday, and on Saturday that day, they called me up and said, hey, we're held interviews open. Would you like to come up and interview for the job again? I go, yeah, I guess so. So we drove all the way up to, it was north of Grand Rapids. Had an interview in the church. By the time we got home, went to the house, phone was ringing, and they say, hey, we'll give you the job. So we moved to, well, we really didn't move. I drove back and forth from Union City to Crystal Springs Camp for the first 4 years that we worked there. And that's a 60-mile trip one way. And
The camp was open in the summertime, so
Yeah.
he talked in the, so
Yeah.
weird.
But, yeah, that was a great job. Sad to say, the Methodist Church has now sold it to the Potawatomi Indians.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah, the Pokagon tribe.
But it's still a camp.
Yes, we found that out just the other day. My daughter Rebecca, who's teaching at Niles, one of her students is a,
Member of the Potawatomi tribe.
yeah, and she said, oh, I know Crystal Springs, we're having camps up at Crystal Springs, so that was good news.
It's very
That was
well
good.
kept now, too. They've been really working on it this summer.
They've taken down,
Yeah, so it's very.
which was a thing that I wanted to do. I mean, when we moved into the camp, there were probably 50 houses that used to be maintained, or supposed to be maintained by retired Methodist ministers. But, they were pretty bare, the house itself, and some of them, the only thing they had was electricity and not a decent bathroom or anything. And it hadn't been maintained excuse me, in years. So one of the things I was asked to do was to purchase them as the manager and tear them down. Well, the only problem was that there was another 20 cottage owners that, you know, they wanted to stay there. And they thought I was the wrecking crew coming in to remove all the people from the camp. But
Weren't they originally owned by individuals who would come in the summer for camp meeting?
well, yes, exactly.
Billy
exactly.
Sunday and all that.
Yes,
Maybe big revivals,
big
there's
revivals.
a big fence
And,
all around the
Yeah.
whole property.
yeah, exactly.
Isn't Martha's Vineyard one of those places that had?
Grew differently though.
Well, yeah. But it survived better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, didn't you find out that the tabernacle was something to do with one of the families up in Chicago?
Oh, Stella Cooper Tabernacle.
It was St. Joe.
Yeah, it was a
It
young
was
gal.
named
who-
after Stella Cooper was a daughter, and then she
Yeah.
passed.
She passed away and that was built in 1890, is that correct?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, 1890.
See that sign there for years?
Well, and weren't they heirs to, what was it? Was it jockey underwear or something like
Oh, yeah,
that?
I remember.
Yes,
And that's how they made their money.
that's how they made their money. And you're saying it could be,
I remember
Yeah.
that now, yeah.
yeah. See, Marty's younger than me.
You remember stuff. Yeah.
Well, I don't.
The camp experience was unbelievable. I mean, to spend a summer just maintaining the buildings and grounds, but watching kids come to camp and just having a safe, ever-loving ball. And Robin Emmenacker was one of our better deans. She was a great dean. She was bubbly and she had the kids having a great time. Locally, I don't know who else would have been. It was Robin though. Pastor Jeff was frequently involved with the camp too. He had Hope Church. It was our next to last year there, I think. We had a storm go through, took out 50 trees. And it was like in the end of April.
Yeah.
And Hope Church came up and did a lot of tree cutting. And we opened on time. We didn't lose a week's worth of work, or camps. That was a neat experience. I re-roofed, and I surely didn't do it by myself, but we re-roofed the tabernacle roof. The tabernacle was 150 feet long and probably in the area of 75 feet wide. And it needed a new roof. And I kept trying to find somebody that would do it for nothing, and that wasn't possible. So myself and a couple churches, but the Niles United Methodist Church, they came out, and we started hammering away and hammering away. First day we were working, a lawyer from Niles was going to the Methodist Church in Niles, climbed up the ladder, walked out the roof, sat down at the top of the roof, didn't move. He sat there until lunchtime. And then we got off the roof and he left. So, yeah. Yeah. I think everybody was so busy they just didn't realize he was still frozen. Probably if we'd have moved fast enough, we could have shingled right over top of him. But, we didn't do that.
Is the tabernacle still there?
Yes. Yeah, which would be a tragic thing if, we do. One of the work camps that Hope Church did, we went up there, repaired the chapel windows, not the tabernacle, but the chapel windows. We redid the bathrooms.
In the church or and then we redo doors on the tabernacle?
Oh, yeah, that was what I was going to.
Yeah.
Some of the
Did
beams.
tabernacle doors and some of the poles, or some of the beams that were holding the building up, we cut them off and put new timber in there. We did that for probably 2 or 3 years. We had different projects up at the tabernacle.
Had a really unique architecture.
Yes. Well, it was all, what do they call it, posted peg,
Post and beam and,
posted beam.
yeah,
Yeah, no nails.
Magnificent.
and big.
It was, I frequently used athletes of mine. And one year, the tabernacle floor, we had a wooden floor that was about 4 foot high in the back and sloped down to the stage. And there were holes in it. And the wood that was for the holes was there wasn't any size, that's not what I want to say. You couldn't get the boards to fit because it wasn't the right, we weren't making what was needed to repair the floors. So after a couple of years, I was still at Union City, we decided that we were going to tear the floor out and cement the floor. Well, I brought some of my wrestlers from Union City down, and one of the kids' name was Ross York. And Ross York was born 100 years too late, because he was definitely he would have been a mountain man. He'd have been out in the wilderness, great kid. But we're tearing the floor off. We got all the floor off. All the beams are running back and forth yet, and probably 10,000 nails in the beams. And all of a sudden he sees a raccoon. And he takes off, jumping over these beams, chasing down this raccoon, grabs it by the tail, takes it outside, and doesn't hit it against a tree. He very gently just gets it swinging and tosses it up in the tree. He did that for 4 or 5 raccoons. I'm sitting there going, don't get them. Because raccoons are clean animals. Yeah.
One time there was some big event there, I don't know what it was, but there was gonna be this huge gathering. And there was this man from Andrews University. And you asked me if I would play the piano. And I'm thinking, that place is huge, it's like the football field. What's the point of playing a piano there? Is anybody within, that's farther than 5 feet away even gonna hear it? But, there's no reason, Jack's a good guy, I can do this for him. And it was amazing to me, the acoustics,
Yeah.
because it did work.
We had.
I just thought you were out of your head.
I never thought that way.
Dr. Benaya from
Oh, yeah,
Edwardsburg.
Dr.
Yeah,
Benaya.
he's awesome.
He wanted a revival. He just thought which is what the tabernacle was built for. He wanted a revival. I don't think did we have 100 people?
Maybe.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Dr. Benaya.
Oh, yeah.
Andrews University, yeah.
He used to come with we got numerous groups would come from Andrews and be like the Southeast Asian Club, that kind of stuff, when they would cook in the dining hall. And Indian cooking tends to be very aromatic, so it would stay in there.
Does that mean stink?
I think it does. Obviously, they don't think it does, but he was very nice.
Yes, he was.
He had a lot to do with the Old Rugged Cross Church. So he got in on that project and worked really hard on making sure that got restored.
Yes.
I actually graduated from Andrews University
Congratulations.
a long time ago.
Anybody have any questions for Jack or Sue?
Where is the first school where you were?
Hanover Horton is
Yeah.
outside of Jackson, Michigan.
Oh,
Very small.
Yeah.
2 communities, Hanover and Horton,
Yes.
went together, and made this high school.
And Union City is north of Coldwater, Michigan, right on US 60, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you've had kids from Haiti
Oh,
with you over the
Yes.
time too.
yes. Is it time? All right. When I went down, they gave us, we hired 4 interpreters. And what they would do is they would go with the group and interpret for us. After we came home from the first trip, 4 of them came and stayed with Sue and I for a couple of weeks, and some other families in Michigan for a couple of weeks. So we got to know them.
They were from it wasn't an orphanage, it was a home, it was called Morning Star,
Yeah.
and that's where they lived. This man who was American, and they would pay for them to go to school, they would live there.
Hey, they had for Haitians, they had a pretty good life. They were given at least 2 meals a day. They had a Bible study, and they went to school. And for Haiti, right after the earthquake, that was big. That was really big. But we met all 4 of them. They came twice, stayed with us twice for short periods of time. And then the opportunity for, I think they all 4 came over. And a young man by the name of Tiga came to stay with us for a while. He ended up having family in New York, the Bronx, and so he chose to move off into that
They were
direction.
given the opportunity to come to the States.
Yes.
And so they did,
And-
over a
and-
period of time.
Yeah.
I think they're all here now. Alexander was.
Alexander is the one, he came up shortly, well, he actually went to Detroit, stayed with friends up in Detroit, family up in Detroit, and just as much as it seems strange, the family didn't live in Detroit, but they lived in the suburb of Detroit, and there was no way for him to get around. So he came down to our place and he goes, mind if I stay here? Edwardsburg. I mean, what is there in Edwardsburg? Nonetheless, but he stayed with us, he lived with us for 5 years.
Probably longer than that. He's been here about 10 now, and he's getting his final papers.
Yes.
So he can be here, he can work legally now anyway, but
We see him all the time.
it is great.
He helps out at the pizza shop. He's part of the family. Yeah. part of the family.
Was he going to school?
Oh,
Was
he's,
he-
He
yep,
went to SMC and did that EMT program, but he never took the test, so he didn't get certified for that. He's living in South Bend, he has his own apartment and car, doing quite well. He's now training to be a technician for kidney dialysis, and he really likes that.
very ambitious. He wants to be a millionaire too, so.
Deb?
When you were living in Ocracoke, Andy Williams of Andy of Mayberry actually lived there. He had a home there and actually died there. Did you ever run into him?
No.
Who was that?
Andy
Griffin, or Griffin,
Yeah,
yeah.
Andy Mayberry.
Didn't know that.
Opie's dad.
Yeah,
Oh, he's dead, yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Griffin Show.
yeah.
Yes, I know who
That's
that is.
interesting, yeah, I've never even seen anything down
He
there
was
that's.
pretty much of a loner. He never married or even had a girlfriend. He just was totally, he had 1 or 2 friends that would come occasionally. He was a loner, but I thought maybe
Now I'm
a
curious as to
restaurant
where
or
he lived.
something, maybe you'd run into him.
Never did. But I will look that up next time I'm there.
Yeah.
Go ask.
He actually died in his home there, so I don't know who took over his home then,
Yeah,
but.
we'll find out, let you know.
Inquiring minds.
Well, we have a social hour now. Eleanor Woodrow brought cookies, and I think we have lemonade or cider or something over there. And Jack and Sue will be here, and you can chat with them and share experiences, and let's give them a nice round of applause.
Thank you.